In this lesson, we'll learn how to view the various connections inside of Maya's hypershade. Okay, great. So I want you to go ahead and look in the project files for this course and go ahead and open up the Lesson 5 Begin file. Now, obviously this scene looks like it really doesn't have anything in it right now, and while that's true in terms of geometry, I have created a very simple shading network that we're going to look at. So let's come up to Window and Rendering Editors, and we'll just open up the hypershade here. Okay, fantastic. So if we look up here on the Materials tab, what you'll notice here is that I've got this Blend 1 that I've created here. And let's say that we're wanting to come in and begin to edit this particular shading network. Well, just by looking at this shading network, you can tell that there's probably some kind of a texture that's being used. As you can see here, there's sort of this grid pattern on the sphere. And then, as a matter of fact, if we were to come over here to our Textures tab, you can see here that, yes, indeed, we do have this grid texture that's being used. So let's go ahead and come back to the Materials tab, and we'll just go ahead and middle click on this blend, and we'll bring it right down here. Fantastic. So you'll notice here, as I've brought this material down into my work area, we still can't see any connected nodes at this point. Really, all we see is the material. Now, this is perfectly normal. This is the way that Maya is supposed to work, and there's a few different ways that we can actually begin to reveal these hidden connections. So in the case of that texture, what we could do, if we were to come over here, if we absolutely know that this is the texture that is at play within this shading network, then we could come over here and middle click this guy and go ahead and drag him down into our work area. And you can see that in doing so, it reveals this little arrow connecting the two nodes. So this arrow indicates an incoming connection for this particular material. You can see there's an arrow pointing towards it. So now this particular method is, once you've got lots of materials in your scene, this isn't very efficient. Let me go ahead and just clear off my work area, and I'll show you a little different way. So let's come back into the Materials tab here, and I'm just going to simply select Blend number 1. You can see the highlighted color for the outline means it's selected. And what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to come over and tap on this little button right here, which is going to tell the hypershade to reveal the incoming connections for that material. Now you can see once I've done that here, you can see now we have 3 different nodes that have appeared inside my hypershade. We have our Blend number 1, which is our surface material. We have this grid texture. And then we also have this Place 2D Texture 1. Now you may be wondering, where is this particular node kept? Well, if we come over here, you can see here it's obviously not on our Textures tab. Let's look at Utilities. There it is. So this particular node is a utility node, and we'll look at this here in just a moment. But now, in effect, what we have done in selecting the material and clicking on that button is we revealed all of the data that's coming into that node. So all the incoming connections. Now this could be 2 nodes in the case of this shading network, or it could be 20 nodes, depending on how elaborate the shading network that you've built is. Now, one thing I want to point out about using this button right here is that your results can change depending on what it is you have selected. So let's go ahead and just come over here and select our grid texture. Now, if we were to come in and do the exact same thing, click on this button right here for the grid texture, watch what happens. You'll notice here that the only thing that's revealed to us are the incoming connections to that specific node. You can see now our material is not visible anymore. So having a different node selected can have very different results when you choose to expose these incoming connections. So there's a couple of other buttons here. Let's come over here and just select our material again. And this next button is going to reveal both incoming connections, like this one here, as well as outgoing connections. So if we were to do that, you can see here that we've brought our Blend number 1 back, And we've actually brought out another node that we haven't seen yet. This blend1SG is the shading group for this blend1. And typically, you're probably not going to need to work with this particular node much, at least at first. But just know that there is data further down the pipe than just your surface material. Now, this last button is simply to reveal the outgoing connections. So if we were to select our blend1 and tap on that button, you can see that all we have visible now is the surface material and the shading group. All right, great. Now I'm going to go ahead and clear off my work area here because as you begin to create different nodes here, maybe some texture nodes, we'll come in here and just drop in, let's just say we'll drop in this grid texture here. What you'll notice here, you'll see here it pops down into our work area, but if I zoom out, you'll see that this particular node comes with our Place 2D Texture node. And again, this is a node that gets dropped over here into the Utilities tab. You can see now there's two of them in here. So as you begin to work with some of these textures, you'll notice that some nodes come together with a particular node that you've targeted, like this Place 2D Texture node, because this particular texture isn't possible without its placement information that this particular node supplies. All right, fantastic. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next lesson, and we'll look in a little bit more detail at this process of making connections between nodes here inside of Maya's Hypershade.